Good evening and welcome to Literature in 60 Minutes. My name is Zandile Pooe. Thank you so much for joining us. It is yet another Wednesday, and that means we are talking to an author. And our author for this evening is Mlungisi Biela. He is a researcher from Cape Town, and he has written a book titled There's a Prize on the Enemy's Head. And when I saw his book, I was actually quite fascinated and interested because the graphic is quite, attractive and it pulls you in, but also the title itself, because we never really think of some of the things that belong to us being possessed by the enemy and how we need to, wage war in order to take what is ours from him in the form of the prizes and the promises that God has entitled and given to us, but sometimes we need to engage in battle in order to get them. And Mlungisi's book very well articulates some of the struggles that we might need to go through in that battle with the enemy and in claiming our prize. So I will be chatting to him right after the break. Please stay tuned.
There's worship in the air. Zoe Live Radio. The abundant life experience. Marching to the beat of the Lord. Zoe Live Radio.
Welcome back. And as I said earlier, we are talking to Mr. Mlungisi Biela, and he is the author of There's a Prize on the Devil's Head. He has written a few books before this one, but tonight we are talking specifically about this one. And welcome, Mr. Biela. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Zandile, for affording me this opportunity to speak to your audience. Thank you.
You are most welcome. I found your book on Instagram. You had an advert, a sponsored ad on Instagram, and it immediately grabbed my attention. Just the graphic of the book, as well as the title. So maybe you can start by telling us, what informed, what's the rationale behind your title, as well as the cover of your book.
Well, to give a short background, I'm a teacher by profession. So I learned when I was teaching, I was doing a teaching degree that a picture tells a story. And then also choosing a title also will tell a story. Just before the person would take the book from the shelf, they already know, anticipate what the story is going to be about. So that's the background to the title and also to the picture, the graphic picture that is on the book.
Okay. So tell us a bit about your inspiration for writing the book. What led you to, put pen to paper or, as an ancient phrase, but what inspired you to write it?
Yes. I've lived a life, and I've experienced certain eventualities. So I always want to record my real experience and what made it to turn around, because when you go through something, you always anticipate a turnaround, but depending on what you do about it. So that is how I tell all my stories,
Based on your own personal experiences. That's powerful. Yes. Yeah, because a lot of us experience a lot and then we write nothing about it, which then gets lost. Yes. But then now, I think if you can share with me, for instance, for us as Christians, the enemy is a formidable foe for us. So do you think that sometimes, I know this is not, the gist and the key of your book, but do you think that sometimes as Christians, we tend to have a fear of the devil and what he can do to us versus the reverence, the reverential fear that is spoken about in the Bible of God and his power and how he can overcome that of the enemy?
Yeah, that's a very good question. But first and foremost, every one of us should have fear of the devil, because if you don't fear him, he will take you down with his tricks and wiles. So better have fear than have a superficial, brevity about him. On him. because he will take you down. So you better fear that whenever he comes, he is going to take you down. But you must also fear God that what he says, it's true, and what he says, he means it. So there are two fears here, as you said. There is reverential fear of God. We don't fear him like we fear the devil.
Yeah.
We fear him based on his word, that if we don't go according to his word, we are going to be taken down by his adversary, the devil. So that's where we have to draw the line between these two fears. We still have to fear the devil because he is relentless on what he has against us. In the same way as God is relentless in being good to us, the devil is relentless in being evil to us.
And the book is anchored on 1 Samuel 17, verses 25 to 28, which is the story of David and Goliath, or the beginning of the story of David and Goliath. And I just want us to take us through this particular passage of scripture as to why your book is anchored upon it and how, for instance, the significance that it has towards our battles, our daily battles with our own personal Goliaths.
Yeah. So, it's, as you said, it's based on verses 17, Samuel 17, 1 Samuel to 17, 25 to 28. And the verse 25 talks about David asking a question that have you seen the giant? And the king has offered a huge reward to anyone who kills him. He will give that man one of his daughters for a wife, and the man's entire family will be exempted from paying taxes. So the story tells me that there will always be a price with the seed to pay in order to achieve something. But there will also be a price with a Z in killing your fears. So that's what is at play here. Because people are asking, have you seen a giant? And what the king is offered to someone who's going to kill this giant. So there must be a challenge to be addressed, and there must be an enemy that must be killed, and there must be a prize that must be won in all of our struggles. That's the gist of verse 25. So if we go to verse 26, it says, David asked the soldier standing by, what will a man get for killing, this Philistine? So he is still probing what is available to be taken up if I can take this person, if I can take the devil down. God always has a prize for us if we take down the devil, because there is always victory ahead of us. That's why the word says when Jesus was approaching death, he did not look at death, but he looked into the victory that was set before him, so that he had to go through it, because what lies behind the curtain is what is for us, but what lies in front of the curtain is for us to get this victory, to go through, to forge through in order to get it. To get what is behind the curtain. So that was the thing that David was after here. And the prize was named that the family of that person is going to be tax exempted. The person who's going to kill the giant is also going to be, what's the word? He's going to get the king's daughter, That was the prize that was being set for the one who's going to be victorious against the devil. But then you must also know that when you approach the challenge in life, you must really determine its credentials, whether it's the enemy itself in the form of a human being or in the form of warfare itself, the spirit. You must know its credentials. What is it that is at stake with this warfare that is attacking me? What is at stake with this giant that is attacking me? So David asked, and then he was told it's Goliath who was causing all this havoc. And he assessed him because he was around in the area. He knew the history and the background about Goliath, that he was from a pagan nation, a tribe that was not chosen by God. So he was just an uncircumcised Philistine. That in itself, knowing the credentials of the enemy, it made him to decide that if I go forward with this, I'm going to take him down. And that's what happened. So we must know who the enemy is or what the enemy is. Then we will know the approach that we're going to take in order to defeat him.
I've always found the story of David and Goliath very fascinating because the entire Israeli army could not confront Goliath. The entire army, the king included, which is something that warrants some thought, because if an entire army and then this boy who is a shepherd, essentially, he's not a soldier as yet. He hasn't been trained in battle. He approaches an enemy that is formidable, that everybody in the army is afraid of. And he even uses unconventional weaponry in order to fight this giant and defeat him. I think it also speaks to the fact that sometimes the conventional way of fighting battles has its limitations. Because if you are in the face of battle, you would think my sword should be sufficient, my shield and this and all the entire armament that we approach, the battlefield with. So I always found it fascinating that, David chose a different weapon. It was effective and brought down an entire giant that was intimidating and actually, had driven fear into the hearts and minds of an entire army and a king. So I've always found it fascinating that we also maybe need to look at our battle plan, our battle strategy as to, what does this particular battle call for? Yes, I'm used to my sword of the spirit. Yes, I'm used to my shield of faith and my belt of truth and, the entire armor of God. But however, this particular battle may need a very different strategy and discernment, as well as, I think prayer and hearing what God is saying to you in that hour about how you should confront any particular battle that you face in any season of your life. So that was just my thought, my take there. Nothing from your own a book that I've picked up. But in chapter 4, you speak of a personal experience of your own about your pursuit of a godly wife. Please tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it stems on the assignment that I want to take after I retire from my normal work, where I want to pursue now an assignment for the community, because now I'm just an employee at Parliament of South Africa. But when I retire, then I want to pursue my own assignment now, So I'm looking for a wife that will fit into this, picture that I have in mind. I'm not having, in terms of saying a godly wife means somebody who is perfect, because there's nobody perfect. If there was, then I would be waiting on that person. I will die before I get married. So, and the second thing is, I know what was prophesied to me, that you will have somebody who is like this and this and this. And I had never spoken to anybody about my assignment, but they already talked about it, that this is the kind of person that you're gonna have. And I also, it linked to what I know that I want, that is in my spirit, and the prophecy was linked to that. And I also know that maybe I have not seen her yet, in spite of the millions of women, godly women that are there.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, I think I will know when I see her. Not because she's perfect, but just because, when they say it's love at the first sight, you know that this is my person. And most people have married purely on the basis of that, meeting a person and saying, I love this person. And they say, I knew from the word go that is my person.
Yeah.
So I think I will know when I see that person. That's the
As the phrase goes, you will know in your Noah. Because there's a Noah on the inside of us,
yes.
that tends to discern and that tends to detect things, not instinctively. I won't put it that way, but I think your Holy Spirit will know if that person is the best suited person for you.
Yes.
But then now that also speaks to something else. Prophecies are an important part of our lives. The Bible is filled with promise and prophecy. So sometimes there are things that we will see come to pass, that will be prophesied. For instance, the prophecy of the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ was in the Bible, but many fathers passed away before it even came to pass. So in the realm of prophecy, what are some things you are believing for a wife and you are knowing that you will know her when you see her? But what about other things in our lives that get prophesied, but maybe perhaps not for our generation? It's something that is coming in the future and beyond you. How do you pass that kind of prophecy on? For instance, if it's something that's meant to come down your bloodline, for instance, if it's something that you need to, maybe it's been prophesied on your family that I don't know, maybe there will be generational wealth, so how do you then become the person and the link that says, okay, this has been prophesied to me as an individual, but because it is something that covers my entire family, how do you then become the custodian of making sure that the next person believes, even though it doesn't happen in your own lifetime?
Yeah. First is to believe that God does not speak in vain, and it says in His word that whatever He says, it will not come back to Him void.
Yeah.
It may be void concerning me, but not my generation. The distinct difference here is about when it talks about the prophecy talks about a wife or a husband to you. It won't be a generational thing. That's too personal, But wealth is general for the family. Then you can discern that this is specifically for me. It's not for my generations. It's just for me, because a wife can only be for you.
Yeah.
I don't have. I have only daughters. I don't have a son, so it won't be about my daughters getting a wife.
Yeah.
It will be a wife because it's speaking directly to me. But other things, as you said, generational wealth or whatever, that would be then generational if it doesn't happen in my lifetime. But also, when you have such prophecy, you keep the faith until you leave this earth, because it means then you will be passing on a legacy. But if you wavered on it while you were alive, it might not come through for your generations. So it's keeping it alive all the time, keeping the faith on it, knowing that it will happen in future. Like the people in Hebrews 11, some it says they did not see what they were waiting on, but they knew that they are looking forward to a city where they will be sitting with God now, looking back to their generation to say, this is what you said, God, but it's happening to our generations down on earth. So we have to keep the faith alive, even if we have to go through this earth without seeing it. But our generations will take it just because we held on to it. You know, yeah.
And on the personal prophecy side of things, I'm just wary because, you know, not all prophecy is from God. Because sometimes the prophetic has been subject to much abuse. From
some people read your Instagram and see how you feel and how you express yourself. What are your desires, and you know. So yeah.
And also, I think just purely from, you can have someone who is gifted, who has the gift, because the gift and the callings of God are without reproach. He won't take them back. Yeah. But there are people who abuse the gift of God for financial gain, or, you know, some kind of other abuse, because some people abuse women and they say, you know, God said, you're my wife, you're my this. So how do people discern? How do people fight that kind of spirit in their own personal battles? Because I feel like in an era where there can be a conference that says, pay 5,000 Rand, will prophesy when your husband, or, you know, will tell you your husband will be here in 3 years or 4 years type of thing, you know, because people desire very much to get married, and it is a right desire, you know, but how can people not fall prey to cons and you know, some kind of deceit and being, you know, beguiled from, and being also conned out of their money just to get a prophecy and a word from the Lord. How can people discern, you know, a false spirit, even though it's coming from someone who's genuinely gifted?
A man of God. Yeah. The first thing is a prophecy cannot extort money from you. You cannot buy prophecy. And also, because in the Bible, there's nowhere where people had to pay something in order to receive something from God through prophecy. So all is needed is your faith. All is needed is believing what God is saying, that it will come to pass. So if I have to pay something like money, then it means it's not from God. It's just a skill. It's just a gift that is abused. And also, I should have my own peace going to it. You know, going to do it. I must have my peace that it's in the word in the first place, but also I have my peace about it. If there's some little doubt that I'm gambling now because money is involved, craft is involved, then it won't work, because God does not gamble. God speaks directly. God does things directly, and he won't be hiding behind other schemes in order to bring something to you. So those are the discernment areas for me, that I must have my peace. It must be based on the word, and I must not pay money in order to receive prophecy and its manifestation.
And I think it's also important to distinguish between bringing a gift to the prophet, because that is biblical. You know, you are mandated to bring a gift and to give gifts to prophets. The Shunammite woman did it. We've seen who else? I think it was it Saul, when they went up to see the prophet, when they were looking for the lost, what was it? The lost there were animals that were lost and they went looking for them. I need to remember who that character is, but they wanted to bring a gift to the prophet in order, to come before him. So now I think that mustn't be lost on us. Yes. That mustn't be lost on us to say, you are absolutely not entitled to give anything. But I think there's a certain level of extortion that you must also be able to recognize, that, if it has a specific price tag on it, you might need to exercise, your discernment there. But yeah, I think, moving on to the next chapter.
And if you paid after you have seen, if you not pay, if you give it after you have seen the manifestation, like these people you are quoting, so then it's coming from me. It's not being demanded from me by the prophet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I think people should have their discernment heightened there in that area. But then now, a lot of the time we view the enemy as an outsider, and when someone is your enemy, you literally don't want to do anything with them, and they mean you no good. So now what happens? There have been cases, I think in this particular passage, there is Eliab. So what happens when your enemy is your kin? Your enemy is in your family, and you don't recognize them as an enemy, but you associate and familiarize with them as a loved one, but they are not for you. They are not, for your progress and whatever. I think in the context of, general society, you have this person who isn't intent on, your good in life. So how do you deal with that sort of thing? How do you even recognize that this person, though they may be a blood relative or in my family, but they are not necessarily for.
Yeah. The first thing is an enemy is always in your circle. They might not be from your family per se, but they will always be in your circle, So let's take the taxi industry. If there is a group targeting you or as an association or as an owner of a particular route, it will be somebody in the taxi industry. It can't be somebody in the retail. So it's always somebody within your circle that knows how you go about, how you are making profits, how you are succeeding within this circle. Then it also can be somebody in your own kin, because they have assessed how much your parents love you, how much your other siblings love you, how much your relatives love you, how much in a church the pastor loves you, how much at work your supervisor or your manager loves you than them. So it's always somebody within your circle. But identifying this person, it first is the competitive spirit that they have with you. They will always be trying to match what you are doing or topping it up. But when they are trying it, when it's not a natural, flair of them, then they will fail, because it must come out naturally. It must come out of their desire to be good, not against another person, solely for themselves, you see. So that competitive spirit will always show it. And, when they try to outsmart you, also, those are the things. And trying to win people's hearts by talking down on you, that's also another identifier of these people, whether it's in within your circle or in your own family. And playing victim, they such people like playing victim, the people who are your enemies, and so, and labeling, they also label you by where you are, so that they accentuate where you are, whether you are failing or you are succeeding. They will label you about where you are, so that you tone down, or so that also you get discouraged. That's how you identify them. Yeah, so those are the kinds of, they don't label you about where you are going. They don't encourage you to say, wow, man, we think you are getting somewhere with this. Continue in this trajectory. Continue in this kind of way of running your own life. You're gonna be good. But they will say you will not amount to anything given where you are now. So that is how you identify these people. Like in the case of Eliab, he was saying, aren't you a shepherd of a few sheep? Do you think you can feature on this event of this magnitude, where a giant is facing the nation and you are just a small boy? You can't face a nation alone. We have not been able to do it being older than you here. The army, look at the army around here, it's failing. They are intimidated by this giant. Who do you think you are? So you can identify such people by these actions I've enumerated. Thank you.
And then sometimes there's the polar opposite, because sometimes we can also be the enemy.
Yeah,
we can be those people, because it's easy to point outside in, but sometimes you need to look inside out. Maybe you are that brother who talks down your brother. There's a spirit, because I think the enemy comes in, he's a spirit. So there is a spirit that you'll adopt. You spoke about competitiveness, sometimes you love your brother, uncle, whoever, but there's a spirit that comes up, a spirit of envy, a spirit of jealousy, that then triggers, that competitiveness to say, no, but I can do better, or I can outdo you, or I'm better in some ways. Because that's where that thing comes from. It's from not wanting to feel smaller than the next person. And how do people deal with themselves, in instances when they have been possessed by a competitive, unhealthy, demonic, spirit that is causing them to look at their family or whoever, friend, whoever is in their lives that is supposed to be loving and encouraging and doing all the opposites of what they're doing. How would you encourage somebody who must recognize that in themselves?
First we must be real to ourselves and about ourselves. I like posting about real issues on Instagram, and I know that many people don't like it, the way I do it, but I'm just showing, because I'm just teaching on Instagram. It's not like so it's being real with yourself and to yourself about what experience you have undergone in order to be where you are. So you might talk about something now, but it's something that happened many years ago, and you took lessons from it. I've recently posted about working on myself, a series on working on myself. Because I was trying to show that life is real. Life is not the glossy picture that we paint on social media. So people must know that there is reality. Life is real. Even about the weight, there are words that are glossy from in the Bible, about saying, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It's nice to confess that, and it's good to confess it, but confessing it will have no meaning until you meet a situation where your strength is challenged and the strength of God is challenged in your life. You will say, where is this strength that I've been confessing about? saying, I can do all things. Why am I unable to do this one thing now when I've been able to do other things? So there's that reality in life. So the thing is, if you look at the story of David and Goliath, what intimidated a lot of people, even the army itself and the king, was that Goliath was saying things, saying things that were real. He said, "Who are you? You can't take me." And the price that he put down, saying, if you defeat me, we will serve you as a nation. The entire nation is going to serve you. But if you defeat us, we will serve you. So there's a lot at stake with our struggles and our reality. So they looked into that reality, that it's possible this man, he knows what he means and he's wearing armory. If it goes by the way what he says, we will be doomed as a nation. But then the confession must also be based on what you know about God, what God had said, and what he has proved himself to be. In the case of David knew this reality, that this is a giant. But he said to himself, what I know about myself is that God will defeat any uncircumcised nation which comes against us. Also, I've fought a lion, I've fought a bear, and I was able to emasculate the lamb from their mouths. So based on that was his confession going down to take Goliath, against the confession that Goliath was saying. So it will depend on which confession is that you believe in. If you believe in the confession of the enemy and the reality, yes, the reality is real, but you must know God is more real than the actual reality that you see. So you have to determine the real truth from those two realities that were faced here by David and also by Goliath. Yeah,
that is so true. Hey, because one of the things that Eliab says is, where are those few sheep? Or who's watching those few sheep?
Yeah.
But to me, he's trying to, talk him down. He's trying to discourage him.
Exactly.
But the few sheep speak of stewardship. He is responsible for something, and that's where they expect him to be. So. Yeah. We really need to start looking at the things that God has given us to steward. And little as it may be, the lion and the bear for David came through the stewardship of those sheep, those few sheep that Eliab is referring to. So in each of our lives, there are few sheep that we are meant to steward, and there are lions and bears that we can fight and confront and overcome in our area of assignment, which is, the sheep pen at the time. But what God is doing in us in that environment is equipping us to conquer the Goliaths of our lives. So what do you think people should start doing to recognize that in their lives? Because it may be difficult, maybe you work a menial job, or, you don't even have a job, but there are certain things that maybe God is calling you to do, or certain responsibilities that you have that, there's a lot of power, there's a lot of courage you are meant to be drawing from those experiences in order to fight in another completely separate and different area of your life. How do people come to recognize those things in their lives?
Yeah, the thing is to know that in your stewardship, you must do better. If you do better in your stewardship at or on the level that you are, you will know that when you are given a bigger assignment, you will be able to feature in it. So, but how do you get proven, or how do you prove to yourself that you can take on bigger assignments. You do it by being better where you are. If I'm doing a menial job, I must do the menial job where I am on my level. And then somebody will notice me and recognize me and then pull me up from that under the hand of God and then promote me. Or even that menial job itself will grow me by, let's say you are selling tomatoes in the street. You can sell tomatoes over a while. If you do it better, you keep your merchandise fresh. You keep the price. You don't overprice. You are clean. It will, promote you. People will recognize you, and you will get profit from it. You will excel in it. You will grow in it until maybe you get a retail or a spaza or something. So you start by perfecting where you are, not where you are going, because you don't know where you are going.
Yes.
You can aspire to it, but you will be proven by where you are, your zeal, the encouragement that you have, the courage, to move forward, to search, even if circumstances are you are pushing against the wall, but keep pushing, doing it better. It will come to pass. So that's where, because we normally want to do bigger things when we have not proven ourselves that we can do smaller things. Because even the Bible says, don't despise small beginnings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And
because
I think
it might be the way God is speaking to you, that this is because the word says He speaks, I think, from the end, when it's still gonna begin, and He speak at the beginning of it about the end of it, how big it's gonna be. So you better start where you are in order to go where you should go.
that I think that's so important, because the other device or strategy that the enemy uses is to tempt us with the kingdoms of this world. He did it to Jesus in Matthew 4. To say he took him to the great height, showed him all the kingdoms of this world, and say, if you will worship me, I will give all of this to you. So we face that a lot in our lives. In many ways, it may not be the kingdoms of this world, but it may be a tender. It may be, some promotion, or opportunity that requires you to bow down to the devil in order for you to get it. Those things happen in our lives. And because it's not to that magnitude of what Christ was offered, does not mean that it does not come from the same tempter. So how do people respond like Jesus responded, because it's not an easy default response for us, mere mortals. Because you may have needs, your child doesn't have school fees, whatever, you need this money, you need whatever. He appeals to that which you need and that which you desire most, maybe at a given time, at a moment of desperation even. So how do you respond in a Christ-like way in situations of that nature?
You just wait on the opportunity that God will give you that is godly. It must not be an opportunity that will make you sell your soul. Or if I say sell your soul, I mean a lot of things here. It means if I must bribe for it, if I must slip my way up, or if I must kill somebody, if I must spite somebody, if I must undo somebody's good work in order to be recognized, all those things are from the devil. The way to do it and the way it is called for me to do it will show whether it comes from God. It's an opportunity availing itself from God, or it is availing itself from the enemy. So it will just be clear. There's no hidden thing here. The devil does not hide anything to us. He makes it attractive But when you look closer, you know that you can see that it's not attractive. God will make it attractive because it is attractive. It's not a makeshift kind of thing. It's the real thing. It's real good, you know. And if you have to go through some pain in order to get it, you will go through that pain, but with your peace, with your joy, you know. That's the difference between what you have, you know, because we normally in Christendom we don't really know the difference between endurance and striving. There's a lot of talk about people are striving to be good. People are striving to do this and that, which is not true. If you speak the truth, that you are real about your struggles and your work with God, to people that is striving. But to God, it's not striving; it's endurance, because you know what God has said about to you and about you. You know what the Word says. We will go through things. Struggles will always be there. Tribulation will always be there. But you must know that I've overcome the world. I'm basing my endurance on that. In the end, I'm gonna overcome this world that I'm confronting. I'm not striving as people would believe, because if you do what is right, people always say you are striving. There's grace, there's whatever. So you just know. You said you know things in your knower when things are good. If I'm doing something good, I know that God is nodding, you know, to me doing.
True.
You know, I have my peace doing it. I have my joy. I'm not in despair, but I'm in peace in doing it, in enduring, because I know the price that is set before me. Jesus was like that as well. And the ifs of the world will not get us anywhere. That's what Jesus was fighting with the devil, because he all his questions were, if you could do this, if you are this. The if they never work for the children of God. It's only the when or the since and the whens. If he says, since you are the child of God, I know that you can command angels. God would have commanded angels. He would have thrown him down and commanded the angels, since he is the Son of God. But because the devil says, if you are, meaning from the word go, he's doubting that Jesus is God, is the Son of God, or even if he knows, but he wants to corrupt the mind of Jesus to believe that I'm not who I say I am in God. So we must also know that the devil will say, you think we are this. If we are this, you're gonna do this. You're gonna prove yourself by doing this or saying that. But the real question or the real statement should say, since you are a child of God, I know you are going to go through this formidable battle and you're gonna win in the end. That's the, you can see from how people craft what their questions or statements against you, that they don't believe God is working in your life. God is not saying anything to your life. You are not going anywhere. You are just wishing. But if they say, since you are, then you will be able to go forward without all these noises around, you know, because they are promoting you. They are, you know, what's the word? They're cheering you on to do what is right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So now, how do people take the prize from the enemy's head? In a nutshell.
Man, that's a good thing. Yeah. It goes back to what I said in one of your questions when I was answering. It's based on the confession you say, you know, and based on what God has said in His Word, and based on what He has done in real life, in real time in your life. Because in the case of David, he based it on his experience, that God had made me to kill the lion and take out the lamb from its mouth. Even the bear, I was able to do it. That was his confession, because that is real life. That is what happened in his life. He also talks about another example is when he says, I was young, but now I'm old.
But I've never seen the righteous forsaken. Yeah.
Man, I tell you, the history that I know about my God is that if I'm righteous, I will never see me begging for bread, neither will I also see my children begging for bread. That's a CV that David was reading from his experience with God. So you have to know the CV of your God. You have to know what you have experienced under the hand of God, whether you came under it or whether you came on top of it. Our histories are always dated about those experiences, but it's only that when we are confronted by more difficult situations, we forget about what God has already done in our lives. We look at this situation and say, if God was there, how could he allow this to happen to me?
Yeah.
But God is trusting you that I've already said in my word, I'm your strength. I've already said you will go through tribulations in life, but you will overcome, because I have overcome the world, So that's the thing, to know what the word says about you, God says about you, and what God has done in real time in your life. Those are the things you never forget. There's this tendency in Christendom to say, your victories, you always talk about victories that happened some years back.
Yeah.
To me, that's not surviving cancer. For me, under the hand of God is not something that I can just brush aside and say, oh, that was then. Now God cannot heal me from another disease, or God cannot do something even smaller than what he did, killing me from cancer, or something even bigger than cancer that God can do for me. So all my life is based on what God had already done in my life. To know that I can still go forward. That testimony keeps me going forward. If you're gonna not remember your history with God, then it's not happening. Nothing is going to happen in your life. It's like your certificate from varsity or wherever. You keep going on because you are backed up by the certificate that tells the story about you.
Yeah.
That tells what you know about yourself, that tells you what you have accomplished in life. Then anything else, you see a job and you say, I can take this job because I have this knowledge about this job. I have this experience concerning this job. I have, so you don't say, my certificate, I got it 20 years ago, then it's not going to work now. Then how many certificates are you going to have to prove the point at the present time that you are not basing yourself on what happened in the past? So there's some foolishness also in this world about people wanting you to look down on the experiences that you have with God, the credentials of God over your life, because that is what is going to take you forward. You can't look forward not knowing how God is going to carry you through, because he has carried you in the past. You see?
Yeah. Now, Apostle Paul says something very profound. He says, forgetting what is behind me, I press towards the prize of the mark of the high calling in God. Sometimes we may not have a great track history record personally, not to say that is God's record in our lives, but sometimes we may have had a Job season, like a very long, Job season, where you were just challenged on every side, and you've suffered and lost a tremendous amount. However, even in those situations, there is still a high calling before you. And the prize is still very much, ahead of you. I press towards the mark of the prize. So I think that's also something very important to remember, because when you are talking about your history with God, we all have different histories. So I think in God, even the scripture that says all things work together for good, for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So you need to understand that in God, the ahead of you is always far better than even your great seasons ahead of you or behind you. So Apostle Paul his pedigree was just incredible, and he had a great is it Jewish? Yeah, Jewish pedigree. He came from, he was taught at the feet of Gamaliel, all of these wonderful things. But he still discarded that for knowing Christ, for serving Christ, for following Christ. So sometimes you may have been in a religion that didn't serve you so well or served you well, depending on which side you were. But serving Christ, there's no comparison as to what has.
Yeah, you see, the difference with Paul is that he was not elevating the bad experiences and his failures. He was saying, "I'm not looking back, because when I look back, I failed."
Yeah,
you see.
Yeah.
But when I look forward, I'm gonna apprehend what I want to apprehend under God, under Jesus, under the Holy Spirit. So it's a difference between basing what you do on what God, on the good record of God in the past, because you can't brush it aside, even as much as you look forward. So he was talking about the experiences that you have, that he was a learned person. He could argue. He was killing the Jews, the Christians. So he's saying that experience, because it's bad, I'm not going to accentuate it. I'm not going to elevate it. All I'm going to elevate now is moving forward, because what is good for me is what is before me. If your history is bad, but it showed the hand of God in it and you survived, then you can't say that history is bad, because it's all about God. It's not about yourself. You are not saying, I studied under Gamaliel, so I'm too better than all of you guys. But you are saying, God saved me from the lion and the bear, and I was able to do what is good. God saved me from hunger, because he said, if you go on my path, you are righteous, not based on what you do, based on what Christ did. Then you are not going to beg for bread. You are not going to, your children will not beg for bread. So it's all, if the history or the record of God about you in the past is good, you can still work on it, put bricks and bricks on it to move forward. Yeah, I think that is the difference I wanted to highlight between our bad past and our good past.
Our good past. Yeah, definitely. Because we need both, and we never know who's listening. Who's going to be.
You said very articulately about what is it? Good and bad working together for my good. All you have to know is that even if it's good, if it's bad, if I mix it with the goodness of God, it's gonna work better. But if you say, because it's bad, I'm going under, then you will go under. But if you know that you have the mindset that even this bad situation is gonna work together with the goodness of God, then you're gonna triumph.
Definitely. Sure. Thank you so much. Now you can tell the audience about how they can get in touch with you and how they can buy your book.
Yes, thank you so much. My Instagram page is Mlungis Biela. Mlungis without an I in the end. It's Mlungis Biela, at Mlungis Biela. And also the book, you can find it from Rich Publishers. You can also find it from Amazon. You can find it from Smashwords. You can find it from, I think, Barnes & Noble. You can also find it from at print on demand, in Cape Town. So everything is on my promotion page. You can see it about this book. Also take a lot as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been such an eye-opening conversation, about some of the elements that we need to really look out for where the enemy is concerned. Thank you. And again.
I'm so happy for the opportunity you gave me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Right after the break, I'm going to be signing off with you guys. Please stay tuned.
Your number one inspiration station, Zoe Live Radio, the abundant life experience. Zoe Live Radio, the abundant life experience.
Welcome back. That was such an eye-opening conversation with Mlungisi, because we have so much that we have to confront on a daily basis. And we also need to stay alert and recognize the fact that, our enemies are round about us. They are our kin, they are our family, they are our friends, they are people that we know and love sometimes. And knowing and recognizing the spirit and not blaming the person, the individual, kind of helps you understand how you need to engage your daily battles with your Goliaths, with the people that are threatening, intimidating, and trying to take away what God has promised and ordained for you. So I hope that you got some very good nuggets from his book. I trust that you will be visiting all the different platforms that he mentioned that his book is available at, and supporting him, because it is important that we support our local authors and buy their published works. But for tonight, that is it from my side. I trust that you will have a fruitful week ahead. May the good Lord bless you.
You and me, two in agreement. The best in praise and worship. Zoe Live Radio.